Well, how we doing? How we doing on this wonderful, terrific Tuesday? This is Dr. Gregory Clarke Sr., and of course, we're here for another comeback conversations. Now, all of us who are going through, welcome to all the members of the Comeback Collective Circle, regardless if you're watching us live or on YouTube. We appreciate you. We thank you for being a part of the community, and we'll give you other aspects and avenues that you can be a part as we continue to flow through this respective season as we see gas prices are crazy. Bananas, bananas, bananas. And I'm not talking about Nana Banana Pro. I'm talking about bananas. These prices are crazy. And at the day of this taping, I was able to be a part of an AI intensive where we started to learn some, great things and great opportunities and possibilities. So it was so wonderful, it was so blessed, it was so magnificent, and it was just an excellent time. So allow yourself to be in those spaces where you can generate yourself, you can give yourself the possibility of learning something else and to be outside the box. You know what I'm saying? We started seeing people who usually don't even have the opportunity to really be coding. And so if you're not allowing yourself to be abreast of the respective technologies around us, you're doing yourself a disservice. So you never know. We might do something here as an addendum along with the Dynasty Path, but today we're gonna, jump into a great teaching as we, continue to flow and grow and develop. So once again, as the rest of the individuals come in, that's great. When they get in where they fit in, but we won't belabor long. And for those who are able to be with us, and I'll say in the pre-show, we had a little Caribbean gospel mix. That's what I would call it. A little Caribbean gospel mix. And it was nice. Sometimes you got to balance it out. Got to balance it out. So I hope you enjoy that. That's why I encourage those to, come live with us because you get to see other perspectives of us other than those that are going to participate on this fine evening. And so remember, if you desire to be a part of the Comeback Collective Circle, definitely go to CoachClarkeDmin.com. Go take the fourth quarter assessment. Allow yourself the opportunity to be on the email list. You can follow us on Facebook, you can join the Facebook group, Comeback Collective Circle. What else? YouTube at Dr. Gregory Clarke Master Coach. The invitation is open and endless so that you can be a part of the circle. And that's just the community that we're building here. So once again, thank you for those who are live and those who will see this a little bit later. So with that being said, we won't belabor long. Like I said, we will not take too long. We're gonna flow. We're gonna flow. And it's going to be beautiful. We're gonna flow. I didn't even get a chance to really do any correction. As always, I always ask Miss Nicole Johnson as the barometer to make sure that we can see the screen. Can we see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. So once again, why the next step matters. See, the past couple of weeks, previous weeks, and I see that Mr. Sampson is in the building, and I know he deals with insurance as well. And another young lady that was with us during the AI intensive that I was a part of, Esther Adioye. Here's some shouting out people. These are individuals who are positioning themselves like when you desire to get some more information or you're ready to take that plunge. These are quality individuals that won't lead you astray, that will at least give you the opportunity to make a choice. And that's one of the things that we do here in the circles that we're about you applying the information that we get. So the past couple of weeks, we've been in this universal life, or at least definitely over a month. It was like the Universal Life series. So you can definitely, if you missed those or you need a refresher to catch up, definitely go to my YouTube channel at Dr. Gregory Clarke Master Coach, and you see all the great interactions and great possibilities of recognize that. But as we move from that Universal Life series as a part of the Dynasty Path, now we on the next steps. And why this next step matters is so important because this is where, as you can see by that wonderful picture on the right, vision without alignment collapses. Information inspires us to act. Now, that's very important. So we know that everything that we share here in the comeback conversation with Dr. Clarke, you may be able to implement, or maybe certain things you've already started implementing. Certain things, could be an eye opener. So, whoa, maybe I can jump into that. And this is what it's about. When you get or hear information, it's not for you just to sit on. It's about you be well positioned and allow yourself the opportunity to be in application and to be in learning. Don't just always looking for everyone to do something for you. Learn, because there may be times that you may have to sit there and figure it out. And it's always good. Not saying that you're going to figure out everything. I'm not sitting here like as we dealt with the individuals today, learning around AI, and of course we were exposed to certain great things today. And it was the environment. It was in a learning environment. It wasn't like someone that was teaching, everyone was sitting at the computers just, typing away. It was an environment where there was an ebb and flow. There was information that was being passed. There was conversation. It was light. It wasn't arduous. It wasn't loud. It was about development. And development never has to be loud. It's about recognizing that eventually you start to really catch on and catch up to what's going on around you. So information should always inspire you to act. Alignment stabilizes our foundation. Agreement sustains our legacy across generations. Wealth fails not from lack of money, but from lack of unity. I need to say that line again. Wealth fails not from lack of money, but from lack of unity. See, many times we so focus on our resources where it goes back to the first person that you have to be unified with is yourself. If you're not willing to look within yourself to be unified, to be aligned, to be atoned, to be at one, regardless of whatever you do outside of yourself, it's not going to work. I don't care how much experience you have or how much that we can throw out titles, throw out experience and all this other stuff. There's plenty of people out there that have a whole bunch of experience, but when you really break it down, do they really have anything to show for it? So yes, you have experience, but you don't have nothing to show for it. So technically, you really haven't mastered anything. You just mastered time. So if you're not unified within yourself to be in a space of being progressive, to be in a space of continuous development, in the space of recognizing that sometimes it's good just to keep your mouth shut so you can listen and absorb so that you can process and then you can have something that can come out of you as a result. So that place always starts and ends within you. Sometimes we can look for all this unity that's happening all outside of us. Oh, the reason why this is happening is because of this and that. So that's great. You can point those fingers. As long as that you're recognizing that first finger that you really have to point to is to yourself. So now that we see the system, we must become the system. So for those of you who were part of all the different teachings during the Universal Life series, now it's about you figuring out, are you going to just go regular whole life? Are you going the index route? Are you going to go the variable route? You have choices. Are you going to speak to individuals who can give you those pertinent opportunities to allow you to figure out your choices? And even if you have a budget is not a bad thing. I remember that from the time when I was working at Viacom, Showtime Networks. Once a year, you would see the people scurrying around. They were having their budgetary meetings where different departments had to come and say, okay, this is the reason why we need X amount of dollars for the year. And sometimes they had to prove what they did the previous year, or sometimes they forecast what it is that they're doing in the current year or the upcoming year because of what is being presented or maybe what needs to be promoted, if it's marketing or advertising or whatever the department is, film, development, video production, whatever it is. And when you talk about a budget, sometimes we can look at that B word as a bad word. A budget is not something that's supposed to put you in constraints. What a budget does, a budget gives you a parameter. A budget gives you a guide. A budget lets you say, yo, this is what I have to work with. let me work what I have. And if I desire more, let me figure out how I can earn more, make more. And too many times we can be in spaces where we can be over budgeting and we can create all the greatest excuses around it. But it's still you're not in budget. You've overspent. How you gonna pay for it? I don't know. How could you be how could you overspend and not know? But too many times, and I'm myself included, you can go back to I believe it's episode 39 when I had my mea culpa moment. I remember Nicole Johnson probably texted someone says it seems like he's going off. It's like, no, it wasn't going off. It needs to be expressed. Because there are times you have to recognize, are we really working the systems around us? Or are we just complaining about them? Or we're just putting it to the side and say, oh, it's this and it's that and this and that. Like right now, gas prices is bananas, which is eventually going to affect price of your groceries. And this is geopolitically. So I know we have William Richards here from St. Martin. That's going to affect them down there. This is not something that's just a United States thing. I know the other day they talked about because of what's been going on, because of the lack of oil movement. Cuba, they went dark. I'm talking about an island nation in the Caribbean, went dark. But are we going to look at it just from the systemic standpoint or just look at all the socioeconomic, geopolitical, all the other things? Because we can sit there and start throwing up our arms, but are you really looking at the full picture? And that's why next step matters, as I see someone's in the chat. Let's see. Why are you acting up today, chat? Miss Nicole, why don't you read to me what you were saying?
It was
Zoom is
a
acting
news
real
article I
extra
read
here.
earlier today speaking
Mm-hmm.
about how the current war with Iran, is
Mm-hmm.
pushing approximately 100,000 British workers out of work due to the energy crisis. So the employers are trying to offset the rising energy costs by cutting their workforce or freezing hiring, which is a terrible, terrible reaction to a war that they had nothing to do with.
Jesus.
And I'm complete.
Thank you for that. And think about that. See that now those 100,000 workers are being caught up now in a respective system. It's not a make wrong, but usually probably a bunch of those individuals were not prepared for the fact that the United States and another country are going to decide to attack another country or, say preemptively during the space of negotiations, start a conflict. And by starting that conflict, it would exacerbate into the point that you're affecting a lot of lives. You're affecting a lot of people. You're affecting a lot of spaces. Now, what do we do with that? Because as I stated earlier, as I was seeing trucks on the road as we were, navigating the highways, and you think about it, diesel prices went through the roof. So that means the transporters are circulating more dollars in order to get that product from point A to point B. That means eventually that's going to affect when it gets to the end users. That means they're going to charge them more. And what's going to end up happening is like how with the tariffs. Oh, the tariffs are not going to affect the American people. Of course they are. And of course they did. And now we're in this morose about talking about the potential of refunds, but still, even if there are refunds given, the economic impact that those tariffs already had, you can't go back in time and say, oh, yeah, thank you for the refund. I'm going to go back when, a bag of potato chips cost me $5 when it's usually $2. So we have to recognize why our very next steps matter as a part of this dynasty path. Because we must be aware, we must be relevant, we must be positioned. Stock market has been going crazy. You can't blame them from that. Part of the stock market is very psychological. They've seen their prices going up. They've seen AI. They've seen software companies, seen technology, people worrying about water. All this stuff is psychological. And when people start emoting, that means they're in their emotions. And we see these swings. I don't know if today was an up or down day because I didn't really get a chance to focus yet. But regardless of that, it's been like it's the past couple of days have been down days. They've been like one or two up days, but it's mainly down days. And seeing how things are trying, people are trying to develop and work through this new normal that's happening around us, which in some parts is kind of maddening. But if you're well positioned, because at certain levels, as we broke it down about, you know, the middle class and those even before lower than middle class, not to negate anyone or make minimize anyone, it just is what it is in a capitalist society. You have your middle class always gets squeezed. Then you have those individuals that are attempting to become rich. And we broke that down because we've seen that there are people who are making six figures who are still living from week to week. So that doesn't put you wealthy. Wealthy people are not living from week to week. So yeah, don't sit there just because you have a six-figure salary and say, "Oh, I'm better than someone who only makes 40,000 a year." If they have some assets that's working for them, if they are well positioned in their budgetary not constraints, but in their budgetary approach, they can be doing well better than someone that's making six figures. So just be mindful of that. So as we recognize those individuals that can be considered beginning to be rich, that's not necessarily the goal either. Now we're talking about moving to the spaces of becoming wealthy and then eventually to become affluent. There's different levels to this. And each part of the system works in its appropriate manner. So now that we see the system, I desire to read that once again. We must become the system. Any thoughts before we go on to the next slide? Because I know today we started hearing stuff that's going on in the state of Texas and certain things that's been happening since December with how they're dealing with DEI or the elimination of DEI. We have to be well positioned. Because I know this particular platform, we deal with, a lot of urban issues and some rural, but we know who we're called to, our Black and brown people. And usually, even though we have the fortitude to be able to navigate and be able to be in the perspective that we can work these things out, but after a while, should we always be living or moving like that? I want you to think about that. Do we always have to be striving? Okay, we know how to work with a little bit. We're going to keep working with this little bit. We know how to work with this little bit. Like, okay, that's good. But why do we have to keep working with a little bit? How we are systemically allowing ourselves to grow. So we're respecting the narrative, but who says we have to keep having that narrative? And this is one of the platforms and others out there, but definitively as the Comeback Collective Circle, this is what we're about. We're about our community growing. We're about you growing, being you well empowered to make a decision. So if things flip and all of a sudden the stock market acts funny and you have some, resources ready and you can pounce and all of a sudden you jump into some things that start to get back in that upward trajectory and all of a sudden you're seeing that your money is growing, there's still bargains out there. There's still possibilities out there. There's still things that you can allow your money to work for you instead of you just always working for it. So, hopefully you are allowing yourself to be recognizing what's going on. Maybe you're
Got a
investing.
question.
Go ahead, Mr. Oh, go ahead, Mr. Frank. You got a question? Go ahead.
Could it be that they're trying to push us to the EV cars with this gas prices the way they are?
Well, I would say this. That's not necessarily, I wouldn't say yes and I wouldn't say no. I know I know an individual who has an electric vehicle who was telling us, it made everyone in the room, we had to smile and laugh and think about it. He had to go to the charging station to charge his car to get a full charge, and it cost him like $1.50. But right now, across the country, and the gas went up again today. You have places like in California that's probably near like $8 or $9 a gallon. So it makes you wonder, you know, Do you start moving in that space of moving towards EVs? Of course. But at the same time, with this administration coming in, there were certain tax benefits that were presented for people to say, okay, if you're desiring to go in these particular cars, we'll give you a tax incentive because we understand in the long term, as a possibility, can help with the environment. So we'll give you this tax benefit because you're willing to invest in this new technology, which eventually will help to start to lower our demand in certain areas in fossil fuels. Well, people are still desiring to purchase EVs, but they have dropped precipitously. They've dropped like a hard rock, even to the point where Tesla has discontinued two of their models. Not because they were bad vehicles, because they noticed cars are sitting. Because without those subsidies, those cars become a little bit more expensive. That means it's going to cost you more. The gain of entrance to come into that club, that EV club, is going to cost you a little bit more. Now, in the long term, once you have the home charger and then you drive around and you have the right vehicle and you can find the right charger station, it won't cost you that much. But the cost of entry is going to cost you. So it's not so much that they're pushing us towards EV. I would say this, and this is just Dr. Clarke saying, so this is Dr. Clarke's opinion. This particular administration started this war knowing that certain aspects was going to force oil prices to go up. Now, I want you to do your own research. Remember, this is Dr. Clarke's perspective. And I'm not even saying that as the Comeback Collective Circle's perspective. This is Dr. Clarke's personal perspective based upon how I've watched certain things move and navigate, and me just thinking, not emoting. We've noticed that this president and this administration has been very close to certain areas of the Middle East when it came to certain levels of investment or getting some of those countries to invest in America, which is always a good thing. But we've noticed that this administration is a little different, whereas previous ones, or those who've thought about really thinking about America first, even if they were out there soliciting for that foreign investment to come in and, help stimulate certain parts of the economy and, probably make things here, build things here, things of that nature, most of that benefit would go for a countrywide thing, not necessarily towards just the administration. But as we hear, people getting jets and people making deals and, foreign dignitaries are making sure somehow they're going to Trump hotels and they're doing all these little things that's in our face. It makes you wonder, because as the United States is one of the top producers of oil, with these oil prices being crazy, and oil is a world commodity. It's not a United States commodity. It's not a Middle East commodity. It's a world commodity. That means the Russians are making money. Everyone in the Middle East is making money. The people who are producing oil in, those upper reaches of Europe are making money. People in South America are making money. And people in the United States are making money on the backs of the consumers. The consumers are floating the weight of the decisions that they have no position in deciding about. That's how capitalism works. So it's very interesting that if the country that was bombed all these times was in the negotiating table, was at the respective negotiating table. So I want you to really listen to what I'm saying. This is something as if this country of Iran wasn't at the negotiating table. They were. And we still started a war. So I want you to think about that. Because sometimes we can be so much in our box that we don't recognize sometimes the bigger picture. We think it's micro, but it's very macro. And it's ugly, but capitalism is not fair. but we're in a capitalist society. We're all here looking to grow. We're all looking here for expansion in so many different areas. We're all here allowing ourselves to say, if I made $100,000 in 2024, hopefully I can make, not hopefully you budgeted or you projecting that you made 125,000. Oh, wow. Can we grow by 25% for 2025? And then if you hit that number, and all of a sudden for 2026, oh, why can't we grow another 25%? So you think that's another 25,000, but it's not, because you made 125,000. Now you had 31,000 and some change. And then so on and so forth. If you're looking for that precipitous growth, that's part of capitalism. And that's why I said earlier, when even though we are empowered as Black and brown people, says, we know how to, take a little and make much out of it. That's good. That's a great skill. That shows our resiliency. But is that good for the long haul? Is that really the space that's always saying, we're gonna keep striving. We're gonna keep fighting to finally get to the top? No, 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 no. Not being disrespectful to the narrative, but recognize like, no, no. Let's play the game. If you play the game effectively, the game of life will work for you. You can win at the game of life. We all can win at the game of life. It's not meant for you to win a little bit. Well, I desire a little bit. No, I desire my peace. There's 8 billion people on the planet. I desire my peace. And if I'm willing to work at it, I will get my peace. So hopefully, as I answered your question, Mr. Franklin, hopefully that also stimulated other people to really look at it not in a micro sense. You got microeconomics and macroeconomics. What's going on right now is a very big worldwide macroeconomic situation. But we've been experiencing that from the tariffs. That was a worldwide macro situation. Charging people more money to bring their goods into this country, where the government or the people the ones who are grabbing the money initially. It's not even, you can't even blame it on the states. No, the federal government is grabbing that money initially. And then as those goods and services are, ferried out all across the country, everyone's paying what they're paying. It's just something to think about. And that's why we're here to talk about your next step matters. Your next steps matter. Making sure that you have the right insurances in place, making sure that you have the right investments in place, making sure that you're allowing your resources that you're earning or producing, you're sending them back out to come back pregnant. It's okay. We want them to come back. Go out there and go work and come back pregnant. We're happy. Oh my God, this money came back with more money. Not one person here is going to be upset by that. Not a one. But if you don't position yourself for that to occur, then you'll always have the same narrative, which after a while becomes very stale. So as we move on to the next slide.
Yeah, Dr. Clarke.
Go ahead, Mr. Richards.
Yes, good evening. I just want to look at the other side of the coin. Sometimes when you're at a negotiating table, you sometimes, lay all your cards out to the enemy. And then when you have your cards laid out to the enemy, they plan for you. Because it's like you look at the situation with both America and Iran. You look at it that one was at the negotiating table, but at the same time being at the negotiating table, they're also planning at the negotiating table before they reach the negotiating table, that they were able to attack, America in different aspects, like the both countries. But it's like having your mouth open, right? Someone else could plan for you, but I still don't keep a wise head, and I'm complete.
Thank you for that. That is so true. Because there are times, even though we're seeing all of this bombs and, people have already lost their lives, especially, civilians there in Iran, and, now it moved to Lebanon, and, Even some of the servicemen who gave their life as part of them being an ability to say that they're serving their country. There's no real winners in this when you think about it. With all the destruction that's happening, regardless of Israel experiences or some of the countries in the Middle East, and especially what's happening in Iran as we keep bombing them, regardless of wherever we're bombing, eventually all this stuff has to get rebuilt. There's those rebuilding dollars. That's why at times we especially black and brown people have to start looking a little bit more, how's the best way to say it? A little bit more wider with our gaze. Because other people are looking very wide. Because like what happened in Cuba, to me, that was an offshoot. And the whole island loses power because they don't have oil that was imported into the island so that they can run their electricity. That just shows you that is part of a longer game. And sometimes, this, as Mr. Richards brought up, even though Iran and the United States were at the negotiating table, somebody was already in the back of their mind saying, yo, we were already planning X, Y, Z. Because I think it happened like February 28th. Because I remember we all started waking up that weekend. Everyone started waking up the next morning. I think it was either, yeah, because it started happening like late Saturday night going into Sunday morning. It was like you woke up and all of a sudden, wait, we're at war? Where did this happen? Wait a minute. They were just talking about in the middle of the week, the envoy from the United States and the envoy from Iran, and they're having talks and they're attempting to da. All of a sudden we're at war. Like, whoa. Our foreign policy now is like that. We bring people to the table under the guise of saying, okay, let's try to hammer this out with the power of the pen. Already recognizing that you're about to start some hostility. You're about to create something that is going to affect people. And war is ugly. But war, unfortunately, is a capitalistic offshoot of war. Someone is going to have to rebuild those bombs. Someone's going to circulate dollars to buy more weapons. Someone's going to have to circulate to rebuild certain parts of the infrastructure or whatever's been damaged. Now, those lives, especially those young ladies that were, it just lets you know, you have to respect life. And when sometimes just take those momentary moments, as much that we're going to go into the slide, but you take those moments and just think about it, just to have some level of just humanism. It's like, it's ugly. It's at times can be very distasteful, but at the same time, it sucks to say that's part of the overall global economic capitalist society that this world is about. And we can all hope, if we're praying people, that this thing won't last too long. Because in the long run, just like most other wars, what do you really get out of it? Other than the people who are going to make a boatload of money based upon how they're positioned. And my thing is, we have to start to recognize as Black and brown people, we need to be positioned as well. Not saying that we're taking advantage of war, but you got to recognize you got to be at the table too. You can't sit there no longer and say, oh, I'm just not going to be at the table. Let's just protest. Rah, rah, rah. That's good. That's warranted. But as Dr. King even alluded to before he was assassinated April 4th, 1968, 1 year prior, in 1967, he recognized, did I bring my people into a burning house? They have the right to vote. They allegedly have the right to not be lynched, even though that still took another almost 60 years to get on the federal books. And all these things that we can, we don't have to need, we didn't need the Green Book no more, allegedly. But where's economics? So you start to recognize, yeah, you have the right to express your voice without the dollars, without the resources. Your voice will only go but so far. Oh yeah, you can vote, but we still controlling the narrative over here. Yeah, again, no. Now it becomes something different when he says, wait a minute, not only am I going to vote, but now we as a group are starting to do some community cooperative economics. We're starting to recognize how we can figure out how our dollars can stay in our respective communities a little longer, which in the long term empowers your community. So, the real enemy of legacy, which is the title of this slide: disorder, silence, and assumptions. Now, I'm going to ask Ms. Johnson, can you read the common family pitfalls that usually happens in most families that are not prepared? If you're a prepared family, you're having these conversations. If you're an ill-prepared family, you're not having these conversations. Go ahead, Ms. Johnson.
Common family pitfalls: no meaningful conversations about money, no clarity on shared values, no common language for wealth, no documented intentions or plans.
So those are some of the real enemies or enemies. Because when we talk about an enemy, we have to first look at the inner me. And sometimes that inner me can be based upon how you were raised, what type of environment you was in. As we've been talking about even during these respective conversations today, about the fact that, the resiliency of us Black folks and brown folks. We know how to make a way out of nowhere. We shall overcome. Okay. As the song said, we shall overcome someday. When is someday? I know the days of the week. I know someday isn't part of the days of the week. So, and some of these things are very generationally biased from the standpoint of recognizing that certain things were just not in our language to talk about. We were so positioned as a culture or as the pockets of communities that we have, just to be so focused on being consumers. That to have meaningful conversations about money, it was about, we talk about money because we got bills to pay. I got my bills to pay. Okay, that's good. Yes, we need to take care of our responsibilities, but what more could we do? We can't talk about no more. We gotta make sure that rent, that don't get hit money. We gotta make sure that light stay on. We gotta make sure, something going on in my car, and you go through it. It's like, that's great. Responsibilities, we all have them. But where are the conversations that are saying, okay, have we prepared ourselves so that we can do more? And so systemically, and this comes from the avenue of keeping people well positioned as consumers, this is the Willie Lynch whole vibration that has worked for over 400 years. That we're starting to dispel it. We're starting to get rid of it. We're starting to destroy it. But still taking a lot of work. Because there are times that we can take 10 steps forward and end up 12 steps back. It's like, why? Why? So no clarity on shared values. Sometimes you have to really have those intentional conversations, even when you're building a family, but like, yo, how you are with money? Where's your mindset at? And even though you were exposed to it, okay, what have you learned, even based upon what you were exposed with, to say, wait a minute, okay, okay, I know what I went through, but what was I exposed to so I can do better? Or am I just doing a straight linear line? Well, my grandmama did it this way, my mama did it this way, I'm going to do it. Whoa, hey. Talking about 3 or 4 generations. Wait a minute. There's no growth? What are we talking about here? We're not growing? It's okay? And it's not okay. And some of those pointed conversations that sometimes we desire not to have, we put ourselves in that space. Like when we start talking like this, like, oh, you trying to be like them. No. We are in a space where we can be our best selves because we should be our best selves. It's like looking at Black Panther, the movie The Black Panther, when it first came out, and people were like, Black people can have a burgeoning society. Yes. Even though it was based on comics, but yes, that is a type of scenario, situation that we know that's happening right now in the diaspora of Africa. Even though we know that's not its true original name. But on that continent, there are countries that are flourishing. That shows that it's not no jungle situation. Everyone's just trying to, scrape from the bottom. You don't have to be at the onions and leeks. You can reach for the grapes. So no common language for wealth. Well positioned systemically. You're talking about wealth. You want to be like other people, this, that. Whoa. Why not? We're supposed to be talking about wealth. We're supposed to be talking about those things. What can we generate? What can actually be generated? Not just ideas. Because you can end up in analysis paralysis for all these great ideas. It's great ideas, okay. What are the ones that are generating a continuous cycle of resources coming in? Because as we see from some multinational, international corporations, people say McDonald's don't need to advertise no more. Do you think McDonald's? I think most of the people here know what a McDonald's is, even up to Mr. William Richards and St. Martin. They know what a McDonald's is. But McDonald's is always still advertising. Some of you know some of your favorite soft drinks. We're not going to go through each and every one, but like, wow, they still promote. They still have advertising dollars. They're still marketing themselves. But I know that. I may choose to have that type of drink or whatever it is, or whatever it is. Because if it's the soap that's washing your body or the soap that's cleaning your clothes, it's like, wait, why are they advertising? Don't we know them already? Why are they still positioning part of their return on investment and the resources that they get still being in your face? Because they know that's part of the language of wealth. Closed mouths don't get fed. Probably some of you have heard that same statement. Closed mouths don't get fed. So they recognize they desire for their mouth not to stay closed. And they desire to be fed, so they're going to talk. And they're going to talk. They're going to talk effectively, not just talking. There's a big difference. Talking and communicating. They are communicating their message to make sure that they are in the marketplace so that they can be well positioned to eventually get into your house. And no documented intentions or plans. A lot of times we're all growing in those areas. And believe me, as I'm expressing, I'm not sitting here acting like I'm the end all be all or I've done any of these things correctly, because that's part of the development process that even you have to look within yourself and say, wait a minute, even I can get better at that. But you have to have people who are willing to sit there and be willing to be able to interact. As they say, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. So there's a lot of stuff that's happening in psychosis of why we have these enemies or enemies that can affect our potential legacy. And as it says on the thought on the bottom, what is not discussed becomes distorted. What is not defined becomes divisive. Confusion is expensive, both financially and relationally. When you're always in that space where it's like, it's like when they had the audacity to say, and that is no knock on it, but it just shows how they attempted to position things in our face. When you think about the show Good Times, even up to the song, the theme song, that to me was a misnomer. That's why Esther Roll and John Amos, who both transitioned to be with the ancestors, they both fought hard while they was on that show. Even to the point when John Amos was like, wait a minute, what's going on here? We got to show something better. I understand that, y'all are presenting this narrative to the American public, but they got so upset with him, they killed off his character. Wait a minute, a father in the home and a person as an actor who's saying, like, wait a minute, we're not here just to show tomfoolery. We should be showing, like, yo, what are we doing? And we're talking about good times. But they was always scraping by. That's not good times. But we're not going to knock the art. We're not saying this, oh my God, we're knocking the art. No, we're recognizing the systemicness of what was shared and how that potentially helped to exacerbate why you had an enemy to your legacy. Because while you're sitting there still being a consumer, other people are creating. And there are people that are still eating off that show as it's playing in reruns in perpetuity. But it's classic TV. Just something to think about. See, here at the Comeback Collective Circle, we're going to force you to think. We're going to have some fun, not beat nobody up, but we're going to force you to think. We have to. That's the only way we're going to grow. We can't do what we used to do expecting a different result. And when we have these conversations and teachings and conversations, it's not about beating nobody up. It's about recognizing, like, yo, okay, do we recognize how we're going to navigate this game of life? This life is a game. Yes, it is. It's not just that board game that I played when I was a kid. It is a true life is a game. And there are people who are winning, there are people who are losing. And for my aspect, I'm going to be part of the catalyst, regardless of how I present my platform, to make sure that we're on the space where we start winning.
Dr. Clarke,
Go ahead.
I don't want to miss it, but I believe Mr. Sampson had his hand raised. He had a
Please,
share.
thank you. Come on, Mr. Sampson.
No, we've thoroughly moved on. I'm complete. Thank you so much. I just had a comment on something that you were talking about a
No,
while
get the
back.
no, get the comment. Believe me, this is not a monologue. This is a dialogue. Please share
All
your
right.
comment. It'll probably add even more flavor to what we're doing.
No, I was just tapping into the resistance of sharing uh financial information.
Mm,
And we came up in a culture where not only were you scared to have the conversation with your community, but you were scared to have it with your family
mm,
because mothers hid money under mattresses and
mm.
and families just really hid any sort of finances because they were in fear